Welcome to the fifth episode of the Asia Pacific Auto Podcast by S&P Global Mobility. I'm your host, Gaurav Vangal, and today with me, we have with us Ian Park from Seoul. Ian is our expert on the region of South Korea light vehicle production, the country which produced 4.17 million units last year in 2023 and is the sixth largest light vehicle production country. Ian consistently engages with our clients and provides some insights about the regional trends. Today, we welcome him on our podcast series, and he's helped us to understand the South Korea production trend. So, welcome Ian, and thanks for speaking to us.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and yeah, great introduction.
Thank you, Ian. So, let's start with the production outlook first. I was looking at our light vehicle production data post COVID. And I saw that Korea was one of the few countries with sharp recovery in 2023. In 2023, I think Korea posted approximately 13% growth rate. Can you take us through this? What has happened and how the recovery was so faster and how you see the short term growth rate in Korea?
Okay, yeah. Korea auto industry, yeah, recovered as you mentioned, very high last year, but
Hmm.
they also could not avoid the impact from COVID-19 and the semiconductor shortages in the last couple of years. Yes, OEMs were able to minimize damage to their production activities by taking
Hmm.
aggressive measures like active production mix adjustment and shorten production plan period from monthly to weekly basis, etc. That being said, production from 2019 to 21 experienced negative growth about 5% year on average.
Hmm.
Um, and then the recovery, yeah, obviously began as semiconductor supplies started to improve at the end of 2021,
Hmm.
which was slightly earlier than in other regions. That gave us more advantage. And since the pent-up demand and order backlog accumulated, um, they are fully taking the advantage, especially as consumption in the United States, which is the
Hmm.
largest market for South Korea, started to
Yes.
revive from the pandemic.
Hmm.
South Korea was able to hit the highest export ever last year. And another
Okay.
thing is GM Korea's strong rebound.
Hmm.
It's an older story, but production volume of GM Korea had fallen to the low 200,000 units,
Hmm.
mainly due to Chevrolet's withdrawal from the European markets. And however, with the successful restructuring plan um, and becoming a supply base of compact CUVs within the GM group, production last year increased dramatically and reached to the mid 400,000 units. Um, as a result, we were able to achieve high recovery thanks to both
Hmm.
Hyundai and GM
Hmm.
Korea's export growth last year.
Oh, okay, okay. I understood that. I think GM has restarted doing some exports from Korea, and because of the US coming back from the COVID, I think this has helped Korean production. But how do you see the long term for the Korea? I also observe that the market is becoming stagnant between 3 to 4 million units. Is Korean car makers shifting their production base? And I also noticed that GM is reducing production in Korea. So can you help us understand, because I think this is becoming of some kind of worry in the Korean production. So can you please help us understand this trend?
Yeah, yeah, yes, very good question. And first of all, um, the Korean market is facing two fundamental issues:
Okay.
aging and low economic growth.
Okay.
Potential demand will basically saturate due to population decline.
Okay.
Less younger generation to enter the market, while more aged people tend to give up owning vehicles. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Korea used to achieve more than 3% GDP growth in the past decade, but
Mm-hmm.
then the next 10 years will face lower than 2% growth in average.
Oh,
Therefore,
okay.
the domestic market is expected to continue to stagnate rather than grow. And another, maybe more important part is the export.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as you mentioned, production footprint movement is happening. Um, the Hyundai Motor Group is the center of the movement um, because they are heavily localizing their facilities um, instead of investing into South Korea production. That's because these days, the what is it? The uh, um uh
Okay.
sorry, uh, oh, I forgot the word.
So don't worry. So we can continue that. Okay,
Yeah,
we understood that Korean car makers has a very important role in the export business also, right? And we are looking right now that how the EV transformation is happening in the Korean side or the global side. So one of the one of the very important question what we are referring today in the export strategy is also that how the Koreans are trying to bring the export models for the EV markets. Today, when we go out, when we talk about the global competition, we see that Chinese car makers are way ahead to the other car makers. We have seen with the Japanese auto podcast also the same issue. And now we are trying to understand from you that how the Koreans are ramping up, how the Koreans are strategizing for the EV transformation within the Korea or for the export market.
yeah, yeah. Well, your question is actually related to the previous question of how Korea industry is going to be in the long term. As we
Mhm.
know, we are in the phase of transitioning production from conventional ICE-based vehicles to eco-friendly vehicles, especially toward electric vehicles. Um, but unfortunately, electric vehicles by itself is heavily relying on the government's subsidy programs. And
Mhm.
each government is trying to protect their industry.
Mhm.
So I think there will be no additional facility investments to be made into South Korea,
Mhm.
but that doesn't mean um, the Hyundai and Kia's overall global volume is going to decline. And the
Okay.
reason why I bring up Hyundai and Kia, they are occupying almost 80% of South Korea's production, so they are
True. True.
the
True.
key driver. And
Yes.
their investment most likely will be made into overseas localization. Um,
Mhm.
that's why the South Korea's production is going to decline because it, at the because most of the investment will be made into overseas at the expense
Mhm.
of South Korea's production volume drop. And
Okay.
particularly electric vehicle. Last year, South Korea's market experienced a quite unique situation. Although other global EV market is still growing, um, South Korea experienced a kind of negative growth, almost 0% growth last year. And that's because we assume we are more concerned about things like long time charging and the higher vehicle prices, and most of all, the vehicle safety on the fire. And those three things are more obstacles to the South Korea market. So I think, but as you know, the electric vehicle is essential, and it is a global trend. In order to South Korea to sustain production volume, um, we have to um, we have to transit into electric vehicle. But without the electric vehicle growth in South Korean market, it's going to be very difficult. So I assume our government is going to try hard to support um, to maintain the momentum of the electric vehicle production in South Korea.
Okay, that's good enough. And thank you, Ian, for your time. I really appreciate your time and the wealth of insights what you have shared with us today. We have limited time, so we are excited to observe how Korea readies itself and how the government will is going to help Korean car makers for the export markets or also for the domestic markets. So thank you very much, Ian, for
So
giving us
thank
time.
you. Yeah, thank you for inviting me again. Bye.
Thank you very much, everyone listening. Let's meet again in our next episode of Asia Pacific Auto Podcast by S&P Global Mobility.